go through those 3 leg breaks, realize, spend about a year and a half on crutches, realize
that's true. I forgot it was that long.
college is going to look very different. Going into college, feeling like I was kind of, I don't know, like shaken by that. And then became a dad 4 months into college.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it was like, this entire plan just got ripped up.
Hey friends, welcome to Rugged. Young adulting is tough, and I'm here to show you how to make it easy. You'll learn mindset strategies to harness your thoughts and emotions in ways that help you achieve your goals. I'm your host, Trey Tucker, so let's dive right in. Hudson Brock is an entrepreneur who had a major setback and turning point in college, and he's going to tell us how that shaped him into the man he is today. He'll also tell us how to build strong relationships, how to find your purpose, and how to network in an effective way that advances your career. Let's dive right in.
1910, Paris, France. Teddy Roosevelt's talking to a group of people. His speech is called Citizens in a Republic. And he says this iconic quote, "The man in the arena." It goes like this. "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat."
All right, I've never heard anybody actually memorize that. I thought you were going to pull it out and read it.
No.
That's shocked. Okay, so why is that so important to you that you would spend that much time memorizing it?
Yeah. So I think as you grow, you learn that life is an arena of sorts, and it's a character building journey. And the more that you can accept that failing forward is a good story, and you can look at your life as that, it can really ground you and inspire you. And so for me, I am focused right now on being a man in the arena across different arenas. And that quote to me, I think every man having a couple quotes, a couple songs, a couple Bible verses, a couple friends that they can really hold on to as part of their core identity is a differentiator. There's a lot of people that are just following trends, following, the latest songs, the lyrics are just kind of what's playing, and the soundtrack's playing in their head, versus this is my core identity. This is what I'm going to hold on to, because your thoughts end up dictating your actions, your habits, and everything from there. So I think that one in particular I've held on to. My dad got a quote from Macaulay, actually, the definition of motivation, and he's probably gotten 1,000 people to memorize it, me being one of them. And I thought that was cool. So I've always kind of thought, what's a quote that I want people to think of when they think of me? And that's been the one.
Wow. When did it become a reality that okay, I'm in the arena, even if I didn't plan on being it, and so this quote is going to be something I got to hang on to?
Yeah. So I would say when I was 18, very sophomoric, which I believe means you think you know more than you do. Actually a junior in high school, but sophomore.
Oh man.
Yeah. And you kind of have this sense of testosterone's high, your brain is not fully developed. You just kind of think I've got it. And then over a period of about 2 years, I had kind of my entire trajectory changed, and the plan that I had got ripped up. And that was through breaking my leg 3 times, playing soccer, and realizing college soccer, at least at the level that I wanted, was off the table. And then because of that, going to a different school and really getting rocked. First time not being in a community with guardrails. And you kind of have to question, who am I outside of the ecosystem that keeps me in check? Right. And that ended up meaning that I became a dad 4 months into college, freshman semester. So not only am I not going to play soccer at kind of the schools that I wanted, but all of a sudden I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to finish my freshman year of college or ever go back. And life just, got real quick. And so that was probably the first time where I really had that gut check of like, who am I? What am I about? And how am I going to take the new set of circumstances and make the most of it? So that's where like, there is no effort without error. I think that started to be kind of a soundtrack of, you're going to make mistakes. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So that was 18. I just turned 34. So I'd say 16 years in to this journey of working through some of that stuff. And I think it'll keep going for, God willing, another 50 plus years. We'll see what I'm given.
What made you fall forward instead of off into the ditches? Because like you said, you got removed from the place where your guardrails were. And I've seen a lot of people when life doesn't go how they think they're going to go, it wrecks them. And they either wreck their life or they really get way off track for a long time. So how did you keep moving forward?
I would say first, I think that there's a God who is a father to me and he loves me as a son. And so that core belief and identity is a massive anchor. But then also the support system that I had was unbelievable. Very specifically, my brother, Builder, his real name is Builder, as you know, he built me up in a lot of ways in that season, came alongside me. My parents, when I kind of told them everything that was going on, expected them to be angry and disappointed. And they were honest about some of their shock and confusion, but very quickly embraced me and linked arms with me. And so many people don't have that. So I will never take that for granted. And then some amazing friends as well. A lot of whom who I really think rallied around me and my girlfriend at the time, who's now been my wife for 13 years, and my daughter, who's 13. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So anyways, that's a theme for me that I'm very passionate in this season now, in kind of helping people view themselves as in an arena and figuring out how they can tell their story out of that framework.
Yeah. And there's a poise that you have because of what you've been through in the past. And that poise causes people to trust you. So tell people who don't know you, tell people what you're doing now in the arena, because you've given them the backstory.
Yeah.
Now it's coming in handy in this season.
Yeah. So very entrepreneurial. I think part of that was because I was homeschooled and so you're a free thinker in some ways. So multiple ventures right now. My core business is Aloe. It's a talent acquisition agency based in Chattanooga. We partner with people first leaders at innovative companies to make high impact hires. So very much the strategy side of people and team building. Love that stuff. Out of that, I've started a co-working space that Aloe works out of called The Arena. So very on brand. Skews more towards entrepreneurs. So people with a disproportionate risk reward in their work. And then, out of that, we've actually started some things. So my brother and dad and I just launched this adventure race called Expedition. We just had our first one this Saturday. It was epic. Massive storm came through and it just made it even better.
Real quick, run through some of the events or the courses. How'd this thing work? Yeah.
So we had done a bunch of different races: Ironman, Spartan, Tough Mudder, all that stuff, Caveman Combine. And we loved it. And we were like, what's a signature thing we can do that really shows off Chattanooga and isn't like a big franchise model coming here, but is like grassroots, hometown. And so we'd been doing some CrossFit stuff. Like, how do we make everyone feel a little bit uncomfortable? And so for the CrossFit athlete who can do all this functional fitness, maybe that's throwing them on a paddleboard. They're like, whoa, balance is pretty wild. The river's choppy. For a really good runner, let's get them to do burpees in the middle of the run and just totally jack up their heart rate, and their Garmin watch is telling them what's going on with your pace and they're freaking out. Right. For other people, it meant putting on a rucksack and we're going to go through the woods. And maybe you're kind of good when you're in the gym or you're on the pavement, but all of a sudden, if you're running, jumping over roots and it's rainy, how are you going to adapt? So that type of thing. So there was, it started with we're going to do a swim down the Tennessee River through the bridges. It's going to be awesome. The water was too wild after the rain. We got an insane amount of rain Friday night. So we jumped straight to the paddleboard. Then we did some functional fitness, which was burpees and bear crawl. Bear crawl was brutal. Straight into a run, 7.5 mile run that was broken up with a couple other functional fitness, air squats, dips, lunges. And then this one was really fun. It was at CrossFit Brigade over in North Shore. And you had to accumulate 5 minutes of hang time on a bar. So grip strength. So you could be a great runner. Not all great runners have great grip strength. Anytime you dropped, you would then accumulate 10 more sit-ups. And there was like a 50 push-up buy-in. Finished that, and then the final leg was rucking. So weighted vest. There's actually these crazy cool, like old ROTC camo bags with sand in them.
Yeah, let's go.
Through Stringer's Ridge, blew up your legs. You drop that, and then you've got your last like mile run down to Renaissance Park. You run up that hill, run through these flags, and we got a big gong from Steam Logistics. And so you'd run through them, bang, smack that thing, be looking out over the bridges and all that. And you're like, I feel like I just accomplished something. So
literally in the outdoor arena, you got that satisfaction of look what I just did.
Right.
Okay, so consistency is another key. We're getting all kinds of cool offshoots we could go here. But tell more about what else is in your arena. What other arenas are in you? Like the business, the family, the race you just started. Dive into any of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, community building in Chattanooga is something I'm very passionate about. I think we live in the best mid-sized city in the world, and we need people that are continuing to have vision for how Chattanooga can grow while keeping its character and its close-knitness that's amazing. So for me, that meant leaving for a little while. I went out to the West Coast, to Los Angeles for 5 years, and that was uncomfortable in a lot of ways and incredible in a lot of ways. One of my friends talks about just being wide-eyed, and like that was kind of the experience. So much newness, but then coming back with some more vision for what makes Chattanooga special, and also its areas where it can grow. And ironically, one of them is that we were talking about before. This is content. I think seeing in Los Angeles, like the media capital of the world, there's some pros and cons of that, but one of the pros is there's a lot of stories being told. And digitally, like through film, through podcasting and everything. So since coming back, I've had a big desire to create more content that puts Chattanooga on the map, that tells good stories. I'm not a film guy. My wife is the actress, but it's been fun to have some projects around that. We were talking before this about renovating a 1970s Airstream into a mobile podcast studio. We're calling it the Silver Bullet. And so that's one I'm super excited about, telling good stories out of that.
Yeah. All right. So take that idea of content and stories and this city, but what is the thread that holds all these interests you have together? Like, what's the why? Because you even said it yourself in other conversations with me. It's like ADD,
right?
But there is a method to the madness. You're not just doing these random things.
Yeah. So I think I am a big believer in flow and attracting versus chasing. And I think my faith leads me to believe that there's a real spirit-led way to move through life where if you're attuned to who you are and you're entering spaces authentically, that will attract the right people to your values, to the way that your energy, the way you communicate.
Tell those two things again. If you're attuned to who you are.
Attuned to who you are. So self-awareness, and then you're courageous to kind of enter spaces like that. Not just aware of who you are, but actually living that out. There are people that are self-aware and it makes them insecure. And they overly dwell on their weaknesses and not holding on to their strengths. And so I think that's part of growing up. You discover more. You get removed from your parents or whatever kind of social groups kind of shape you. But yeah, if you enter in as yourself, authenticity really attracts people. It has like a magnetizing effect. And then opportunity comes out of that. And so a lot of this stuff has not been strategic. I'm creating a master plan. I think when I was 18, I realized, don't do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for you. Show up and see who's attracted to that. And then in a funny way, like play together, like figure out what is energizing in that, because play builds relationships in a very fast way. And out of that, a lot of times as an adult, there's kind of an underlying financial pressure or responsibility that you feel for your time to be valuable. And so I think it's foolish to totally take away any financial element to these ventures, but not letting that be the core focus. And so if I was going to tie it all together in a theme, it's just a core belief that relationships have the highest ROI. And ROI meaning return on investment, big picture. There will be financial elements to that. There will be a bunch of different immeasurable qualitative things that come out of that. And experience being the biggest one.
Why are relationships so important? Or when did you realize they were so important?
I was super blessed to have parents that modeled that and to be a part of a big family. So like nature versus nurture, I think a lot was nurture. I was the oldest of 6 kids and 21 grandkids, cousins. We actually had 25 cousins that grew up within about 200 yards of each other. Sounds a little funny when I say it,
Right.
But it was really special because it basically meant you have to think as a team. So as a younger person, I didn't have the individualistic mentality that I see a lot now, especially as family size is getting smaller across the board and people are spending so much more time online. All the algorithms are just training you to think, what are my interests? What gives me the dopamine hit? What am I doing for me? And like the self-optimization, that's all just kind of like self-centered, egocentric.
Self-care, self-love, all the self-words.
Yeah, and a lot of it is good, but you have to just keep it in check, I think, because there's something beautiful about losing yourself in the bigger story.
Yeah.
So that's, that's why I'm big on brand. That's why I named my company Aloe Hire. Aloe, the root word, means other or different. So the opposite of egocentric is allocentric, which just means other-centered. You're interested in and attentive to other people and their interests. So I think there's a real power in that in today's self-absorbed world. And for me, I just know it started with a big family.
And then earlier, I'm going back to what you said about self-awareness and courage being the recipe for actually going into whatever arena you're going into. How there's a healthy tension there between self-awareness and awareness of the bigger story. So which one do you think is more important to focus on first, and how do you figure out either one of them?
Oh, it's such a good question. I mean, my daughter, and I think a lot of Gen Z would say main character energy is
Yes,
kind
sir.
of like the self-focus piece. And there's something powerful to saying like, my life's a movie. And if I was watching that movie, what would I be yelling at the main character to do or not do? And that's like to yourself. So there is a real power in that. But I think you just have to keep it in the bigger, you have to keep zooming in to like being curious about yourself. Don't jump to judgment. Why did I do that? And sometimes it's something that you're ashamed of, but it's like, why did I do that? Let me actually ask a couple of times, like 5 whys. Why did I do that? And kind of understand more and be gracious with yourself. And then zoom out, kind of bigger picture. Oh, that act didn't define me. That's not my core identity. And this is where the trajectory of where I'm going. So I think it's just that tension. Like, it's like chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can really say one versus the other. But I will say, going back to that quote, the idea of it's not the critic who counts.
Yeah.
How often is the critic in here?
That inner critic. Yep.
It's the inner critic. It's you.
Yep.
And if Jesus said, love your enemies, it's worth understanding that sometimes that's the enemy within. That's your self-talk.
Yeah.
That's you being unaware of your deeper identity. So I think just that, I'm still learning so much about how to create space for that. We live in a noisy world.
Yep.
I think people that create quiet space to single task and just be present are really unique. Those people seem to get up early more.
Yep.
So that's one little thing. I'm just trying to wake up earlier before the chaos of 3 kids and business stuff ensues. But yeah.
There's, going back to that inner critic, a lot of us think, well, that voice is me. And from a therapeutic standpoint, it's actually not. There's these little parts, kind of think about like little people that live in us that are actually trying to help us out. And one of them is that inner critic. And the critic's trying to help us out by helping us avoid mistakes. And it thinks like, well, if I can criticize Trey, then that'll keep him from messing up and having real people criticize him. So it thinks it's being helpful with the criticism and the shame. But what you and I know in reality is that shame and that inner criticism usually keeps us stuck in whatever the bad patterns are. But if we try to just silence that voice and get rid of it, it's actually going to get worse because it thinks it's being helpful. But I love what you said a minute ago about just being curious about like, okay, why did I really do that? Is the real reason I did that because I'm just an idiot, or is that the voice trying to keep me from making the same mistake again? So loving that voice, loving the fact that the voice is trying to be helpful, while also having enough curiosity to say, all right, that's not really the answer. It's just one part of me trying to offer a solution to whatever it thinks the problem is. So yeah, you knew more therapy knowledge than you probably even realized just with that sentence.
That's helpful though. Yeah. That's really helpful to know. And going back to the relationships have the highest ROI thing, a lot of the self-awareness actually comes from friends that are reflecting back to you.
Yep.
Real friends who you're going to be honest with. And I'm nervous about that right now for a lot of people. I think that, just kind of looking at the youth, I know a lot of times older people kind of look at the next generation and are like, I'm really worried. You know, they don't have the X, Y, or Z that we had. So I don't want to just do that. But it does feel like a moment in time where the ability to have conversation like this, eye to eye, squared up, not like this.
Right.
It's just really challenging right now. And if that's the foundation of being able to be vulnerable and actually start to uncover some of this stuff, how do we create more of those spaces?
With the relational piece, I talk to so many people, especially in their 20s, they don't know who they are. They'll say, like, I'll just straight up ask them, who are you? What's your identity? Like, I don't know. And I say, okay, what's the larger story going on around you? Or why do you think you're here? What's your purpose? Those kind of questions. They don't know that either. Their main thing that they're focused on, and probably through no fault of their own, but the main thing they're focused on is money. It's like, well, I'm just here to be a provider. And sometimes they feel the emptiness of that. Other times they're just so focused on it that they don't realize there's other things that even could be part of their answer. So I don't know if that's ever been a situation that you run into.
100%, because my job in a lot of ways is helping people optimize their profession. And so it's very easy. I get to talk to new people, meet new people every day, to just jump into what's your job, meaning what's your title, what do you get paid, what are their core functions that you've developed an expertise around, versus saying, who are you? How are you hardwired? And there's a framework that I've enjoyed. I don't always apply it to conversations because I don't want to freak people out, like this weird recruiter, but ikigai, Japanese term, basically is this kind of intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for.
But slow down, go through that again, because I think a lot of people need to know, how do I figure myself out? So do that again.
So a reason for being, what do I love? What am I good at? What does the world need? What can I get paid for? Oftentimes, you're not going to solve all of those in your W-2 9-to-5 job. It's worth disclaimer. Don't expect to find that silver bullet that solves all of it? Can you look at your life as a portfolio of activities and try to make sure that you have rhythms that touch on each of those things? If you can find things that you can get paid for that you love to do, that's amazing. Do it. Most of the time, if you can get paid for it, it's because the market's saying the world needs it. There's some industries I would say there's a market for, but the world doesn't need it. So disclaimer on that too.
Right.
And then what am I good at? I mean, that's just a process. Like, it's really powerful when you have people who know you well enough to speak in to your identity as a kid. I think you were one of those people for me. You told me as, high schooler that I had leadership qualities. I was like, wow, that means a lot. Maybe I start to believe I do have leadership qualities. If you have a parent or a coach that tells you can be really good at that sport or that activity, like that really can become a self-fulfilling belief. And so I think what are you good at is an ongoing thing. And for multiple people, they could have 3 or 4 different careers kind of working that out. But I love that framework and just kind of making people slow down. If you just say, who are you? Then oftentimes people are like, what the heck? Mm-hmm. But if you go through those 4 questions, you can kind of prompt a little bit more and start to see themes that you can tie together.
All right, and take that back into how you use it from there. What's your process? You ask those questions, then what?
Yeah, so you got to figure out what the person's core priorities are in that season, and try to reverse engineer that into how they're spending the majority of their waking time and energy through a job. That is still the norm. Mm-hmm. I would say it's still kind of weird how we operate because 150 years ago, pre-industrial revolution, we didn't think about 9 to 5s. It was very integrated. The household and land was the center of the economy. So families had to work together very multi-generationally, oftentimes specialized within their little community to trade and survive. Then all of a sudden we started being able to mass produce. And then all of a sudden this crazy thing called the internet made information. I don't know how fast it's doubling now, but it's just insane. And we built these crazy rhythms of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, kind of arbitrary. Yeah,
kind of arbitrary. And so I think now there's a cool moment where people are trying to step back and think a little bit more about how to design an alternative paths for that, I hope continues to grow. But that's part of what I do, is just helping people step back, not just say, how do I get a 10% raise or a job with 1 remote day or whatever it is, but actually like slow down and think. And then you have to make it practical, and you have to see what your real options are. If someone's priority is to stay in Chattanooga, it's a smaller market. There's less opportunity. You may have to be more patient. Mm-hmm. If they're willing to go anywhere in the world, it really opens things up. Yep. So that's kind of the starting point. And from there, it's just making connections. We were talking about kind of relationship building and networking. And I think networking is the businessy term that oftentimes feels like there's a sales agenda.
Yep.
And so I would just say, if you can set that kind of, stereotype to the side, networking just meaning like, how can I actually find my place and connect with other people? That's the most important thing to figuring out your work. Mm-hmm. And the people that do that well, I think have a lot of opportunities open up. We talk about this acronym PIE and how it plays into career advancement. I would tell anyone young to think about this. PIE. P stands for performance. I stands for image. E stands for exposure. 3 main elements in what's going to lead to your career advancement. Performance. Guess how much that plays, how much of a factor that is percentage-wise in your career advancement.
I would say 50.
10%.
Wow.
That's what most studies show.
Whoa.
I is image. What would you say for that?
Well, now that you've blown up my whole theory, let's say 35.
Yeah, 30 to 40%.
Okay.
And then exposure, 50 to 60%. And so exposure just really is that important. if you perform really well and only your direct manager knows about it, you're going to be pretty limited to just the next promotion under them. Unless they're an amazing manager and they kind of champion you externally. A lot just want to keep you, the great performers, under their wings.
Yep.
Image, now that we have this digital image, there's the physical element. How am I entering the room physically, but also digitally? Who do people know me as? And then exposure is obviously just knowing what all is out there and what opportunities you could chase down. So I think everything's more connected now, but people should, especially young professionals, like 20 to 35, keep that acronym in mind. Be excellent in your job. Have 10 out of 10 performance, because that's what you're signing your name on when you sign an offer letter. But also cultivate a good image. And that can be little silly things like your profile picture on LinkedIn and your headline. And then finally, exposure, like making sure you're showing up, whether it's networking events, podcasts, whatever. Try to actually see what's out there.
All right. So which of those three things scares people the most when you take them through it?
I mean, I think exposure, there's such real nerves to anything like this where you're just going to be put out there,
right? And
to some extent lose control over the narrative. And, the internet can be a mean place.
Yeah.
So just understanding that, like, there's going to be someone that looks at you and is like, oh, they think they're something they're not, or can you believe they said that, or take it out of context. I think as we get more used to that, it's like, that's just part of the game.
Yep.
You know that. You've experienced it.
The first time one of the videos went viral, I got every insult you could think of.
Really?
The way that I looked, the way that I sound, what I said, telling me I'm a fraud, like every insult you could think of it. I'm like, wow, that really hurts. But then I kind of realized, like, oh, well, I kind of feel bad for them, because how much pain must they have inside them to take the time to then spew that pain outward like that? So, but yeah, it's real. It's out there. You got to have thick enough skin to know they're meaning it to be personal, but I don't know them, so I don't need to put value in what they're saying about me, because they don't know me either. But it is out there. Like, the exposure part is scary. So,
and TikTok especially is a wild place. Yeah. You've had some virality. I'm sure you've seen it all at this point.
It's quite entertaining. Some of the trolls in the comments. What would you say to somebody who for whatever reason, don't have the people skills or the experience to connect with somebody well? Are there practical tips? Because I know growing up in the family you grew up in, you had plenty of practice, but I've never met anybody who's as good at connecting with people as you are, from an authentic standpoint. I've never once seen you talk to anybody with some sort of an agenda. You're always curious about them and really wanting to get to know them. And then inevitably fruit comes from that, often in a career kind of way or other friendships. But, like, are there tips you can give people that maybe haven't had that much practice with it?
Yeah, I think like anything, getting reps, actually practicing, it can feel so uncomfortable at first. Even in my work, the first month, calling people that I'd never talked to and trying to convince them that me as a 25-year-old had any career wisdom for them.
Right.
The imposter syndrome was way up here. I was so nervous. And you get better at it. It's a muscle that you build. But the underlying thing is that allocentric piece, the other-centered piece. I cannot overstate that. If you go into, let's say, a networking event, and you're thinking, how's my hair look? Did I write my name well on my name tag? When someone asks me what I do, how am I going to answer it? You're just going to be so tense. You're not playing loose, and it's going to kill your authenticity. Versus thinking, how can I be interested in the other person? How can I ask a good question? Then it's going to give them the opportunity to open up and share. And oftentimes it's a little compliment. It's not a preconceived question. You can kind of have a bank of good questions, but if you try to go in and script it, it's awkward. It usually doesn't work. So just being attentive, like if you're fully present, listen to the other person, just like you've been doing with me, find the avenue to go down that the other person's actually interested in talking about.
Yep.
And then it opens up. And then all of a sudden you're like, we can talk about anything. It's fluid. And I think that, I don't know, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. I've had plenty of calls with, not to stereotype, but software engineers, back-end software engineers, they're like, I don't want to talk to this fast-talking recruiter.
Yep.
And then I'll kind of just keep tactfully getting to know them. And then you find the one thing that they're really interested in. And if I genuinely am interested in that, because they are, all of a sudden they talk for 30 minutes and they're texting after like, thanks so much. Can we get coffee sometime?
Wow.
And there's just something to believing we're going to find a connection point because we're two people floating on this rock in the middle of this insane galaxy. Like we have way more in common.
Yes.
Than different.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Inner spaces like that, this posture of there you are, and how do I like be interested in discovering more about you? And then you got to have your moments of talking about yourself. Like if someone's only, the person that will just ask all the questions and then never open up, and you leave and you're kind of like, man, they kind of just steered the boat the whole time. And I was the one rowing.
Right.
They were just kind of steering it from the back. I think you got to give and take too.
That's a good point, because we're all familiar with the conversation hijacker that makes it all about themselves, but there is the other side of it where you do have to take the risk and open up a little bit. You may know this stat better than me, but there's some stat about the ratio of how much you should try to talk about yourself versus making it about them. And I want to say it's somewhere in like the 65-35-ish range, but have you heard anything like that?
I've heard different stats on that. I don't know one off the top. I do know the person asking the questions is leading the conversation. So it's worth knowing that. Like they're kind of creating the parameters. Best recruiter that I've worked with gave the analogy of being a riverboat guide. Kind of like I was saying, if you've been whitewater rafting, the guide stands in the back and he'll just kind of put his long paddle in the water, and the people up front are rowing. So they're like, we're doing all the work, we're talking. And the guide just gently steering them that way. Wow. So I think just being aware of that.
Now, all right, it's got me curious, going back to the situation where somebody's nervous to enter the room and they're self-conscious about their hair or their makeup or their name tag and all that. When I talk to people who are constantly having to deal with that, what I try to tell them is like, look, you're having those thoughts. So is every person in the room. Mm-hmm. So you could continue to walk in and just hope somebody's going to make you feel comfortable, or you could flip it and take your approach and be other-centered and say, all right, who can I make feel comfortable? Mm-hmm. Or at least do my best to connect with and let them know, hey, I see you. I want to hear about you. And then just through that warm, actual, authentic conversation, you get to make them feel comfortable. And then you were thinking about them so much that all your insecurities kind of got drowned out. And that, another way I say it is, people have got so many of their own problems and insecurities that they don't have much time to think about yours. So
that's really good.
Kind of free you up to walk into a room and be like, hey, let's just get to know people.
Yeah,
see
that's really good.
Impacts. Yeah. And
someone that is honest about their insecurities, that can actually be really endearing. Sometimes you got the person that just calls it out. Man, it's hard to avoid small talk at networking events. You're like, you're right. We're all fighting the urge to talk about the weather right now. Thank you for just identifying the elephant in the room, so now we can all work past that.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I think a good laugh, like just the honesty, can go a super long way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for being here today. Before you go, would you hit that subscribe button so that future episodes come right to you? Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.